Welcome to the Everything Yachting YouTube channel. Our goal is to help yacht buyers, yacht owners, and yacht sellers through interesting, educational, and informative discussions on topics that are anything and everything yachting related.
Hi again, we're back on the 2020 66 Marlowe E Magic. We're getting ready to start up our generator and make way and get ready to get underway. Just wanted to talk about how we get the generator started and how we actually do the transfer over. So ladies, we talked about earlier the different power sources that we have. We have shore power, we have generator power, and we have battery power. So what we're going to do now is we're getting ready to start up one of our generators so that we can make this boat ready to get underway, so that we can disconnect our power cords from the dock side, put those away, so then it's easy for us to continue to move. In order to do that, we want to start a generator so that we can still have all of our household comforts. We can have all of our domestic systems, air conditioning, Wi-Fi, entertainment, water pumps, all of that stuff is still going to run. As we said before, we can do that on battery, but in order to keep all of those things running for us, easily, we're just going to start our generator so we can get that working. So you can see on this particular Marlowe, we have two different generators, and we have a stop button on both of them. We have a start button on both of them, and we have a selector panel where we can kind of flip through and see what different information it gives us. As I go through these, my typical thing is this very first button, I push a couple of times and I come up with the total number of hours on the generators. So you can see this one says 594.5, this one says 611.0. If I have no reason to use one or the other, maybe we talked about in the engine room check, maybe one needs a fuel filter change, maybe one has an oil filter that needs to be changed, so maybe I'm not using one or the other. On this boat today, it's perfect. We could use either one. So which one do you think we should use? If we take a look, one has 594.5 and one has 611. So one has slightly more hours than the other. So let's use the one that has less hours, right, so that we can get to the point where they're even. So we're just going to balance those out both, one way or the other. When we start one of these Cummins Onan generators, all we're going to do, there's a start button and a stop button, right? So Summer, if you could do me a favor, I want you to push that button and hold it. And you're going to see some lights flash and it's going to do some stuff. And it's doing, it's preheating the fuel and it's starting.
Oh.
Keep holding.
Oh.
There you go. Good. Okay, now you can let off. So you just hold it until you actually hear the generator running. Now I know it's hard to hear because it's in a sound shield. It's made to be as quiet as possible. Because if you think about it, if we're out at anchor, we still need to be able to have conversations, we need to be able to sleep, all of that stuff with the generator running. So you can barely hear it running, but you want to get used to what that's like. And you saw that our little light started up and we're ready to go. So now we can see that generator's running. All I did was hit my little switch again and I could see how many volts that this is putting out and what the frequency is. I'm not really locked into any one number. I'm just confirming the thing's running. Okay? So now that that thing is running, I've talked for, maybe 20, 30 seconds. I'd like to let that generator run for at least a minute, 2 minutes, just to, make sure that it's running, that, it doesn't start, grumbling at me, that it doesn't start throwing alarms. Everything's designed to have, this is our gauges, really. So this is like the gauges on your car. If there's a problem with fuel, with oil, or with air, it's going to tell me right there. If it says that it's overheating, everything's going to pop up with a warning there. So I'm just kind of monitoring that as we're going along. Then you can see that the transition from shore power, remember that's what we plug in on the dock, right? Now we're going to switch to the onboard generator side. So we have a port and starboard isolation transformer. That means the cords that are coming into the back of the boat are going into those transformers. And then we decide, are we using our port stern cord, our starboard stern cord, or the different selections here. You have the option to have power coming off the bow or have power coming off the stern. This is where you decide where the boat is getting that power from. We have how many cords? Excellent answer, 2. 2 cords, right? Yeah, you're supposed to laugh at that. So we have 2 cords, right? So we can decide what cords we're going to use.
Okay.
So that's what this does. Is this says, all right, Tino, what chord do you want the boat to listen to? Do you want it to listen to 1 chord? Do you want it to listen to 2 chords? You want it to listen to this 1 chord or this 1 chord? So there is so many different options that you can use. And the whole idea of that is both, the redundancy of the system. If you have one set of contactors or breakers that aren't, for some reason I'm not getting power to the boat, I can go to my other side. So that's that whole redundancy thing that's built into this Marlowe, is to allow us to do that. So now we go, okay, the 2 stern cords, the ones at the back end of the boat, are the ones that are being used right now. We're going to leave that set alone, and you can see we have 2 different sides to our main panels here, right? We have a service side and an air con system, or air conditioning side. So the air con system is labeled here, and because it draws so much power, you have all these different rooms that have blowers, and then you have a seawater pump, a chiller pump, and 2 chillers, or 2 compressors. Those are like the compressors that sit outside of your house, right? So the air conditioning unit. So those are down in the engine room. This pumps water around to our chilled water system, and this takes seawater. Remember, we had a discussion down in the engine room about seawater being used to cool the engines. Well, we also have seawater that comes in, and it does the same kind of thing. It is a heat exchanger for the air conditioning system. Because as it pulls heat out of the boat, that water warms up, so we pump cool water into it, and that is a heat exchanger to make sure that it cools off the water that goes around to all of our air conditioning systems. So we have, that's another system that we're working on. What I do is, typically when I'm changing over, the 2 biggest things that pull power are these chillers. I turn both of those chillers off.
Okay.
Then I go to here, and the air con system, I turn to off. You could hear how much quieter it got because all the air handlers or blowers around the boat suddenly stop. I'm letting all of those spin down. While those are calming down and the chillers are resetting themselves, so instead of turning the power off and then throwing it right back on, I'm letting those calm down. It's kind of like restarting your computer or your cable box, when they say, okay, you've got to wait 30 seconds, right? So I'm letting those reset, right? Everything's computer computer board driven, so I'm letting all the power run out of those capacitors. From here, I take the service side now. The service side, because we're not, we're not using hair dryers and flat irons and water heaters and all that right now. If I was, I would do the same thing. I would turn it to off, let everything kind of calm down. Anything that power goes out of, so in the heavy draw stuff, water heaters, washer dryer, engine heaters, cooktop, washer dryer, barbecue, any of our chargers, I'm letting all that power go out, and then I turn it to our which generator. So this is left and right. Left is port, right is starboard.
Right.
So I'm going to my port generator, because that's the one that's running, correct? So now my service side, I've let the capacitors go out of that, and I turn that back to gen. You can see that all the power came up. I'm starting to get readings on my gauges. So all that's coming back up. Now, the last thing I do, I'm going back to my air con side. I turn that to the port side generator, and then go back down here and turn on my chillers.
Okay.
Because those are the most temperamental, in my experience, in dealing with that. Some people don't do that at all. They just flip it over and they don't ever have a problem. But in my experience, if I'm going to have a problem, it's because I switched the power too soon. So I try to get through all of that part. I'm looking down at all of my DC side. So this is AC side. So this is all stuff that we're used to dealing with at home. So this is like if you had a breaker trip on your breaker panel at home, that's all here.
Okay.
DC side, this is all battery side. This is all like interior lighting and all of that stuff. So you can see everything's labeled, and it's good to kind of get used to what those labels say, because invariably something isn't on or something needs to be tripped back at the most inopportune time. And it's when you're stuck at the wheel, when you're doing something and, oh, I forgot to turn that on. Hey, will you go turn that on for me? And if we haven't done this explanation of being able to really let that person partake in this voyage, in this dream, they are really not feeling good enough to be able to go in and do that. And if I make my mates not feel good enough, they don't want to play anymore. And that's not going to be any fun. Okay, we're going to take a break. We're gonna come back to you. We're going to talk about pulling in our shore power cords and making ready to get underway.
Thanks for joining us at Everything Yachting. I hope you've enjoyed diving into the yachting world today. If you've enjoyed or learned something, please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for more. Until next time, my friends, healthy families, happy memories, and may fair winds and smooth seas guide your future yachting adventures.